All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another week of SaberSim's DFS office hours. It is Monday, July 31st of 2023, last day of July here, August tomorrow, and that means football is right around the corner. So it is a fun time to be playing DFS, thinking about DFS. But for those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Andrew. I'm one of the coaches over here at SaberSims, the show where we go over how to use the SaberSim app, answer any and all DFS related questions. Questions can come in one of three ways. Either you can send us an email at support@sabersim.com, post your questions live in the YouTube chat, or post your questions in the office hours channel in our Discord server. We will get to all the questions before the end of the show, as always. And if you are not part of our Discord and want to get access to that office hours channel, there is a link in the description of this video here. You also get access to all of our similar channels, individual sport channels where members of the community and members of the SaberSim team are helping each other with DFS strategy and concepts each and every day. So can't say enough good things about the Discord here. But with that being said, going to get the app pulled up. Looks like we have a 9-game MLB main slate today. I know that golf tees off Thursday morning here with a pretty crazy conclusion to not a conclusion, but it was a crazy tournament this last week, the 3M Open. I believe the 6-6 rate in the main flagship GPP was about 2%. So that is incredibly low. So, if you didn't get any 6-6s across, don't feel too bad here. But have a couple questions in the office hours channel here. I know I took Friday off here, so no show Friday. So have a little bit of a backlog here. But if anybody has any questions, something they want to get, something they want to ask and answered on today's show, now is a great time to get those in. But first question from Mac. Mac said, in my lineups, if I only want to have hitters in the 2 through 6 batting order, for example, how can I set a rule that would ensure that? Okay, good question here. So there isn't a great way to set a rule per se. So a couple different ways here. One of the easiest ways I can think of is go to all batters and then sort by order, and it will sort order descending. So this will be 9 hitters first. I'm just going to increase the size of the table here. So this will show you all the 9 hitters, followed by 8, followed by 7, followed by 6 here, right? So one thing I think you can do here is click on the first one here. I don't know if a shift click works. Interesting. So a shift click did work somehow. So let's see if we can figure this out. So I thought it would shift click the guys in between, but maybe if I go down to 6, so I'm gonna go down to the last 6 hitter. I'm gonna uncheck them. Now I'm gonna go back to the top, and I'm gonna shift click Harold Castro. Man, why does that work? Shift click. Okay, so I checked them in. So I don't know exactly the functionality of the shift click here. I can ask about that. So it looks like my understanding of it is a little wrong, but it looks like the functionality is there. So it does work in some manner here. But basically, the easiest way is to go in and uncheck all of the 9 through 7 hitters here. So I'm going to shift click. I'll make sure I figure that out. But what you can do is just come in here and uncheck all these 9 hitters, right? And then, go down all the way to 6. So a little tedious. That is one way to do it here. Another way would be to create a group rule, which I think would be similar, where you say use no more than 0 or use exactly 0, I think is a good option here. And then you might be able to do the same thing here. Nope. Shift. Nope. Okay, so you're going to have to find out a way to click all of the 9 through 7 hitters here. I don't love this thinking in general here. So I'll get back to you on the shift click stuff and try and make that process a little easier here. But the reason that I don't like it is because the way we are building your lineups is we are simulating out the games pitch by pitch, essentially here. And what we are doing, it's either pitch by pitch or a bat by bat. I don't remember exactly. But we are simulating out the games either way. And we are coming up with game scripts for how these games play. I think that if you were to go into any individual team and look at the average projections, you would probably see a sliding scale here where, let me do this one. Let me get rid of all 0 batters really quickly with my projection greater than like 4. Should be fine. Remove those guys. So when you look at the order of the batters, right, we're going to look at 1 through 8 here, 1 through 9. And what you should often see is that, okay, you know, my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 batters are usually going to be projected higher than my 6, 7, 8, 9. And that's because, you know, 1, they're probably better hitters on average here. So their managers put them higher up in the order. 2, they're going to get more plate appearances per game, etc. Right? So Perdomo 7 projection, Marte 8, Carroll 9, Walker 7, and then we start to go down, right? So then we see Canzone 6, Rivera 5, 6, 4, 6, right? So we see this drop off. If you're building based on average projections, then yes, you are going to, you know, favor these guys at the top of the order more often. But in this team environment game where baseball requires, you know, one person to get a hit and then somebody else has to get a hit to drive that runner in. So then the second guy gets a hit and an RBI. The first guy gets additional points for the run scored, right? It's this real team type of environment here. One of my favorite things to do is to try and get a different construction of batters for like the chalkiest teams, right? So if I want to see what the chalkiest teams on today's slate are, go to Team Stacks, can sort by projected runs. San Diego is a great option here. So let's go and look at San Diego. So I'm going to go look at San Diego. I'm going to look at their ownerships, right? Cronenworth, 31%. Tatis, 27%. Juan Soto, 21%, right? Machado, 19%. And everybody basically over 16% here going to be incredibly, incredibly popular, right? So the question is not, do I fade San Diego or do I play San Diego, right? To me, the question is, okay, you know, is San Diego a good play? And then that's step one. And then I would use the Sims to help me come to that conclusion, right? So the best way that I would do that is run a build here, and I'll run this while I continue to talk. But I'm basically going to be looking at my stack pool exposures, looking at how much the team is coming up in my top lineups, right? So I can look at my top 20. I can look at my top 150, right? I can look at different bucket sizes from my pool here. And by doing that, I am valuing Saber Score, something I talked about in a single entry video recently. So just going to point that out for you guys really quickly here. So if you guys haven't seen this, over on the YouTube channel, let me get this pulled up. Over on the YouTube channel, released a video, I believe, last week or week before here, how to build single entry lineups with SaberSim here, about 9 days ago, kind of walking through a single entry process. One of the things that I talked about in that video was looking at your pool size in different snippets, right? And the reason for that is that, you know, stack pool size is great, right? Nothing wrong with looking at that. But then you're kind of discounting Saber Score by doing that. So when I use Saber Score, it's like, okay, what if I look at the top 5% of my pool, which would be the top 25 lineups? What does SaberSim think are the best exposures there, right? What if I look at the top 50 lineups, top 10% of my pool, right? And looks like we absolutely love Milwaukee here. So that's something to take note of, right? But looking at the group of lineups in different buckets, right? And then still looking at stack pool exposure and balancing all of these things out, right? So that's kind of what we're getting at. But let's say that, you know, San Diego, my top stack pool exposure, but I'm not really getting to them in a lot of my lineups. I'm getting to them in some of my lineups. Let's say I want to play, you know, San Diego at the same rate as the field's playing it, right? So this idea that, hey, I don't want San Diego to beat me, but I also don't want San Diego to hurt me. I would rather match about what the field is going to play on San Diego or what their optimal rate is, which we are using stack pool exposure as a proxy for optimal rate here, and then take my stands somewhere else. Try and find leverage on the slate in a different way, maybe by playing a team like Milwaukee at a very high rate where all of their batter exposures are under 10% from what I can see in the lineups that are populating with them, right? So that's just one line of thinking here. But for those San Diego stacks, right? They're going to be so popular. How can I get to San Diego in an unconventional way, right? And I think that's where using, 7, 8, 9 hitters are really going to come into play. And SaberSim is going to help you get to those players. And it's because we are not building your lineup simply based on average projections here. We are simulating the games, and there might be a game where, you get like more of like a wraparound stack where you get like a 7, 8, 1, 2, 4 stack, which sounds super unconventional, right? A 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, but like there are plenty of times in the Sims where that is occurring, which is why those lineups are coming up for you, right? We're not just building you lineups with unconventional stacks. We have a purpose behind that, right? We have something backing up that lineup, right? So think of it in that way. I didn't want to say, I was going to make a reference to like the dollar being backed by gold, but I'm not going to go down that route. Okay, so I want to look at some of these San Diego stacks that we have here, and I want to look at specifically some of these 5 stacks, and I want to see what they look like, right? So this one is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 stack. Then we have a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stack. So a lot of these, are still fairly close, right, in proximity here, but it's kind of not what I'm looking for in this example. So I have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 1, 4, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. So the builder is telling me, hey, I don't want to play these lineups. I would kind of agree, right? And just because like they're not from what I'm trying to do different enough, right? And what the builder is grading it on, you guys got to remember, is the average adjusted ownership, right? So when I go and look at my Saber score here, we have this negative weight on average adjusted ownership. The average adjusted ownership of these top San Diego players are really hurting these lineups. That's why these lineups are further down in your pool. It's because, you're using a 16% hitter, a 31% hitter, 22, 27, 21% hitter, all in the same lineup, right? So that is really driving the Saber score of these lineups down here. So just something to note there. But I'm not really seeing a lineup like I kind of want here. This is probably like the closest, like a 1, 3, 5, 6, 9. But anyway, point taken. I think you guys kind of got it from my rambling here, is that finding unconventional ways to stack chalky teams is one way to play the chalk team differently than everybody else, right? So if you guys want to do it, I will figure out that shift-click method here to uncheck a large number of players very quickly here. Maybe we could do a filter. Show players. No, there's not an order here. All right. Well, either way, I'll figure out how to do that faster. But good question to get us going. Definitely something worth talking about here. Going to hit this next question in the Office Hours channel with my man with a Call of Duty Modern Warfare avatar. I like it. Okay, question says, Andrew, I've attached the single entry video. I've watched the single entry video a few times, and it was interesting watching you drill down with the example you used to make a decision. Maybe you've done a video on this before or one already exists, but how can this be applied in the mass entry format? I'm specifically referring to how to make decisions based on your exposure/pool exposure. I know that ownership and projections play a role in this, but let's assume that information is perfect. I'm also aware that we want to be as diverse as possible, but surely we have to make stands somewhere, right? Okay, good question. So referring to the single entry video that I showed you guys, if you guys haven't watched that, I would definitely take a watch, and I'm open to any and all feedback there. But questions like this are great. Happy to address, any questions around my process or concepts that I talked about here. So honestly, when it comes to building, one lineup versus like mass multi-entry with 150 lineups, the truth is that you're not going to be able to be as specific here. Like if I'm building 150 lineups here, I simply cannot, I don't have enough time to go through all of these lineups and like really approve them, I guess is like the right word. I have to trust the builder at some point. And I'm a big SaberSim truther here. I've had a lot of success using SaberSim, so I trust what these outputs are. If you want to spot check some of them, along the way, I think that's great, right? But to sit here and look through all 150 lineups and make sure they pass like that single entry test kind of is a little hard to do. And something else, right, with building a single entry is I'm only looking to take one lineup with me into my contest, right? So I might have multiple lineups, which I kind of get to down at the bottom of that video. It's like, hey, I'm down to these like 5 lineups. They're all good to me. I would play any one of these lineups, but how do I pick one, right? I'm not trying to do that here. Here, I'm trying to look at more lineup-based metrics and say, I'm good with lineups with these characteristics, right? So for the mass multi-entry, I'm trying to look at lineup characteristics more. And for the single entry video, I'm trying to find lineups within with very similar characteristics and drill that down even more and try and find that one lineup that I want to take with me, right? So there's kind of that one extra step there with the single entry, but with the mass multi-entry, right? So, mostly looking for, like you mentioned, diversity, right? So first thing, right to left approach, looking at diversity here, going to go down to the last lineup in my pool here, looking at the stack characteristics of my lineup, right? Maybe I don't want to play these 3 stacks, something similar like I talked about, right? So I'd probably get rid of this 2 stack. Might get rid of these 3 stacks here as well. And then, am I getting to enough of the team stacks that I want, right? And I'm using a couple things here. One, I'm using stack pool exposure to kind of guide me as to how much of these teams I'm okay with on a leverage basis, right? So in single entry, you don't really have leverage, right? You're playing one lineup, you have 100% of them. There's nothing really like, hey, I'm 2x the field on the one lineup that I'm on, the one team that I'm stacking in my lineup, right? You don't really think about it from that. So you lose that portion here, or this is something you add, right? Looking at portfolio percentages, right? So, San Diego having a quarter of my lineups, right? So that's something different that you have to think about here. And then thinking about, how much leverage are you comfortable with, right? Maybe 58% leverage till Milwaukee in 150 lineups is too much for some people, right? Maybe for me, it's okay. Maybe I look at my stack pool exposure and say, well, I'm not even 2x my stack pool exposure, so I am okay with that, right? But I've talked to other people. I've talked to Jordan. Jordan might be somebody who is saying, hey, I don't want more than, I believe he said, I look at my highest stack pool exposure and I don't roster any team above that value, right? So that's more of like a risk averse type style. So Jordan would drop down Milwaukee to 35%, which I think is okay, right? So kind of have to figure out what works for you here, but thinking about leverage is going to come into play a lot more with mass multi-entry. And then spot checking some of these individual exposures here. One thing that I'm always looking for on a batter level is, okay, how much of a team do I have? So Milwaukee, I have 58%. And then I want to make sure that I don't have any Milwaukee batter particularly close to that number, right? So if I have 58% of Milwaukee and I come into my batter exposures and I have 58% of William Contreras, then I could make an assumption that, every Milwaukee stack has William Contreras, and that is just too much exposure to one individual piece of this team, right? So if I click on Contreras, his actual mean here is probably his most likely outcome is closer to 5, with his mean being 9 points. So usually you open these range of outcomes up and 0 is the most likely outcome, but that is being outpaced a little bit here. So that's kind of nice to see. But for a team that I have a lot of exposure to, right, something that I'll do is sort by team here. And then in the search bar, you can search for the team. So I'm going to go sort by team, search for Milwaukee here. And then I want to go and look at my exposure to all hitters in the Milwaukee order, right? So something that pops up to me right off the bat, Abraham Toro at 8%. And then every other Milwaukee batter is in the 20s at least here. So we have Toro at 8%, and then every other batter is at least 25% owned here. So I actually don't like that. I want to make sure, hey, if I'm going to play this team at this super high rate, I want to have fairly even exposure to every batter here. So what I might do is come in here and increase my Toro exposure to something like 20% here. And then the builder's going to tell me, hey, I can't give you 20%, but what I can give you is 11, right? So I went up slightly here. And this is about like 2x his stack pool exposure. So I'm okay with 11% here. you could always go back to the home screen, increase his projection a little bit, and then do it again. You do see that my stat pool exposure went up. What you can do here is cap his exposure before doing that. So it's like, hey, I'm okay with the 58% that I had, but I just want to rearrange the stacks that I'm using. So if I leave that max exposure uncapped, it's just going to increase the number of Milwaukee stacks that I'm getting to. But I'm saying, hey, I'm okay with this number of stacks, but I just want to make sure that I'm using all the batters a little bit differently, right? So kind of back to that concept that we talked about at the beginning of the show here. So these are some things that I'm doing a little bit differently in my 150 entry lineups here that I'm not doing in my single entry here, right? So these are kind of some of those extra steps that you were asking about. So hope that helps. If there's anything I didn't cover, just let me know here, and I'm happy to double back on it. All right. Next question from Albus. Question says, after an MMA build, I sorted by sim optimals. I don't know what to make of it. One lineup was at 10. I'm guessing that is too chalky. How can sim optimals be used in the post-build process? Okay, great question here. And let's go to MMA. We'll go back to this weekend's card. Was an interesting card. The Gaethje knockout was super cool. And then Pereira just edging Jan was also very interesting as well there. So definitely was sweating a little bit myself. But anyways, getting back to this weekend's card here, I'm going to make my 2 adjustments, 2 projections. I'm going to make sure we're building on Sim Diversity 10 here so we get that summary statistic. So for you guys who don't know exactly what the difference is between, some of these sorting metrics and the Sim Diversity 10 and all that good stuff, I released a video recently on our YouTube channel as well. And if you guys go to playlists, you go to Coach's Corner here. These are where these videos are going to live. So understanding Saber score for MMA DFS is going to be like something good to watch to kind of understand what we're talking about here. So I'm not going to go through all the concepts that we talked about here, but basically what we did in that video was talk about the 2 sorting metrics for MMA here. If you go to the sorting metrics, you're going to have MMA Sim Diversity 10 and MMA Default. I'm going to make sure we're on MMA Sim Diversity 10 for this one here. And what I'm going to see is that when I have Sim Diversity at 10, I'm going to get this summary statistic called Sim Optimals. So basically, as it describes here, the number of times this lineup was optimal in the build. So basically what happens is that at Sim Diversity 10, we have thousands of sims of each fight on the slate. So there are 12 fights, right? At Sim Diversity 10, we go and grab 1 simulation of each fight. So we get 12 fights total. And then we do a single, we call it a slate simulation. And then we play out the slate, right? We sim each fight. And then from that slate simulation, we build the highest scoring lineup possible. And then we call that an optimal lineup because it was optimal for 1 single slate simulation. It was the highest scoring group of players that you could build under the salary cap for the highest fantasy points, right? So we have this first lineup here. The sim optimals say 5. So what that means is that, hey, when we did those 500 slate simulations for trying to give you 500 lineups, this same combination of 6 fighters showed up 5 times. So what that means is that, hey, the higher the sim optimals, the higher the win probability of this lineup, right? The more likely, if this lineup is showing up as the winning lineup in the sims a lot, it's a good chance that, this lineup is going to be have a higher chance of winning than the other lineups in your pool. So we are tallying that. We are counting those as we're going through the simulation process. And then 2, if you look at the Saber score formula here for Sim Diversity 10, we're going to use this as a variable. So we're doing 100 times the number of sim optimals in your lineup to get you to get these lineups to the top of your pool. We want to value these lineups very highly here. So one thing that you said that I want to clarify is that sim optimals is not a 1-for-1 with chalkiness. So I can look at this lineup and see that the ownerships are high, but that doesn't mean, sim optimals means chalky like that. I would not make that correlation, right? It can be. So it can be is the more appropriate answer here, right? So that's why we kind of talk about, hey, we want to do things to try and make sure our lineups are going to be less duplicated. We talk about stack constructions, right? So one thing that I really like to do is run a cash build, right? Run a cash build. A cash build will have 0-0 settings here for your correlation and sim diversity, and then see what the most popular constructions are, right? So one thing that I like to do is, hey, let's sort by salary. Let's look at the highest salary guy. And then when you use the magnifying glass on this player, their exposures are going to update. You're going to see the other players that are showing up in lineups with them. So for me, what I'm trying to do is say, hey, when I use the highest salary fighter of Bobby Green, who is the builder putting into lineups with him to get some salary relief, right? There's only so much salary to go around. 50,000 salary, 6 fighters. That's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 8,000, a little more than 8,000, right? So if you're paying up for Bobby Green, you're gonna have to pay down elsewhere, right? So this is a way of figuring out, hey, maybe people are paying up for Bobby Green and then they're paying down for Claudio Ribeiro here, right? So that's one line of thinking. Another thing that you could do is try and maybe avoid max salary lineups, right? Our top sim optimals is max salary. That's unfortunate. We would lose that lineup, but doing some type of salary thing works too, right? Doing a geomean rule. If you're on the standard plan in the home screen, do a geomean custom metric and a geomean filter. If you're on the SaberSim Pro plan, right? A couple different options there. But getting back to the question, how can sim optimals be used in the post build process? So we are using it in the post build by including it in SaberScore, right? So I just want to be clear and upfront by that. But as long as you make sure that you're using the right metric here, because the metric will not go to the right one, will not go to sim diversity 10 automatically here. MMA default is still okay. It just doesn't have that same variable here. So think about that. Think about ways to avoid duplication and try and balance those things all together here. But really quickly here, yeah, I would say that's the way to go. All right. Next question from FV here. FV finally made his way to the Discord. Congrats, my man. FV is always posting questions in the YouTube chat here, especially ahead of the stream. So nice to see him hopping into the Discord here. All right. Question said, hope you had a nice weekend. Thanks, man. You too. Can you please walk through how to fully upload a line on the beta version for DK? I got to the point of downloading the template from the contest button, but could not figure out how to upload my lineups so they would appear on DK. Thanks for the help. Looks like FV is here as well. Yeah, man, I could definitely do this. This is our last question at the moment, everybody. So if anybody has any other questions that they want to ask, now is a great time to get those in. But give me a second to get the beta pulled up here, and we will talk about this. Actually, wrong screen. Okay. It will be this one. Okay, so for those of you guys who aren't aware, so we are testing out a new version of the SaberSim app here. If you guys are on the SaberSim Pro plan and you guys are on a paid subscription, you can access this beta version. It's in a beta because there's still some bugs here. And we are asking, one of the great things with being on the Pro plan, you get early access to features. And that's really because we need additional people testing out these tools, helping us report bugs and stuff. So if you guys are on the Pro plan, you can access this beta.sabersim.com and just sign in with your normal credentials, and you should be able to build lineups here. But basically what I would do, make my 2 adjustments, 2 projections, right? I'm just going to do something for the main slate tonight. I'm going to build my lineups here, and let me get us a CSV to work with really quickly here. So I'm just going to go enter a contest on DK while these lineups build anyway, so I have a little bit of downtime. All right, lineups are building here. And I have a CSV, so we're all set there. So lineups are going to build. I'm just going to act like we're building one lineup here, so I'm not going to make any adjustments, do any of that. Strictly just focusing on upload. Waiting for these lineups to finish. I should have dropped this down to 500, but I didn't. All right, lineups are loaded up now. So I'm going to change my number of lineups to 1. That's all set. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, right? Couple things. So there's a couple options here. There's save to favorites, save to contest, and save to CSV. I want to save to contest, but at the moment I have no contests uploaded, right? So I'm going to click on this contest button, and it's going to tell me, hey, there are currently no lineups to view. And then it's because I don't have a CSV, right? So the way that I get a CSV, please upload an entry file with lineups in it or fill your existing contest entries. Okay, so I need to upload my CSV here. And the way that I do that, okay, hold on. Okay, so sorry. So from the build one that we were in, if I hit save to contest, this will say, hey, please upload your entries file from DK. So I'm just going to use the hyperlink here, and then I'm going to drag in my entries file. Boom, I have my entry. I have my contest that I'm saving to now, and then I'm just going to hit save to contest. So then when you guys look at it now, it says source build 1 1131, which is this build 1, right? I can match it with my build 1, and then I know I'm all set. One thing that happens is that this download button next to the slate identifier goes green. So then now it's telling you, hey, your entry file is ready to be downloaded. And then once I click that, the green will go away here. And then now I have my entry file to upload to DraftKings. And then you just go to DraftKings, make sure you're on the edit entries page. Make sure you are not on the upload lineups page. So small discrepancy there where people can get caught up. But if you need information on just simply how to upload your lineups to DraftKings here, we have a great tutorial. And screen is black. Okay, hold on. Share entire screen. Interesting. So not letting me share my screen at the moment. Don't know why. But what you would do here is go to settings in the top right, go to help, and then this will open up our help documentation here. Let's see if I can work my way through this one window at a time. So this is our help documentation page. Go down to frequently asked questions, or actually no, go down to tutorials, how to fill your entries. If you open this up, this will show you, how to fill an entries file and then how to submit it to DK. It'll just show you the DK guidelines, the DK actions as well. But as far as the beta goes, that is how you do that. All right. We are all caught up with questions at the moment here. So while we wait for any last questions to come in, just want to remind you guys, if you guys are not playing over on Owner's Box, would highly recommend taking advantage of our partnership with them. They are an up-and-coming DFS site here. We were the first major optimizer to support their contest. We started this partnership at the beginning of the MLB season here. It's been great to date. One good thing about playing over on Owner's Box is a lot of their contests overlay, right? They're trying to grow, so they are sizing their contests up. A lot of times these contests won't always fill, right? You can find reduced rake. You can find no rake. You can even find contests where they are paying you to play. Your $5 entry becomes worth $6 by the time the contest starts. The competition is generally going to be softer than what you're going to find on DK, FanDuel, or Yahoo here. And then if you use promo code SABRE or SaberSim when you sign up, one, you can get up to a $500 deposit bonus. 2, we would track your entry fees for you, and you can earn free months of SaberSim just by playing on the site and nothing else here. So each time you hit one of these entry fee tiers here, we will reach out to you, let you know you have earned a free month of SaberSim. You can wait for the next tier, or you can cash in on that free month right away. Once you cash in, we will automatically reset your tracking to 0. There is no limit on the amount of free months of SaberSim you can earn while this promotion lasts. If you're looking for the sign up page, it is linked in the description of this video. But looks like we're all set here today. Happy to be back. You guys know we'll be right back here tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern. We do this show Monday through Friday. So get your questions asked, get those questions in. And if you guys are building lineups throughout the day, something pops in your head, drop it in the Office Hours channel, drop it in the YouTube chat, gets us a steady queue of questions to get started with for our next show here. I really appreciate it while everybody continues to roll in and tune in and ask more questions. But until then, take care. Good luck in your contest. I will see you all. Thanks. Bye.